Hello, everyone, and welcome today for the second part of the Three Peat Podcast with Monique Maye.
And so, as you probably heard last week, we talked about a whole career into basketball. But for this episode, we're going to talk about women in sport and particularly women in basketball. And so, if you're interested, just hear what we have to say.
Now. Let's talk now about the woman in sports. We know that it's an important subject for you.
Yeah.
Because during a long time, and I think it's still the case today, WNBA players are free during 3 months at the end of the season, and a lot of them come in Europe during this period. Did you have this type of case?
For the athletes to come to Europe and play.
During
and they
these
do
3
that
months.
because you have to remember that the WNBA season is different from what we would call the traditional basketball season. So they play the WNBA late spring into summer. And then we have to take into consideration the Olympic years, 2024 coming to Paris. And you take into consideration when the Olympics are coming. So when the Summer Olympics are here, they push the WNBA season back as well, because those are some of the players that are coming to represent the United States will be participating in the Olympic Games. But back to what I was saying before is, so they'll be able to come and play in Europe and play in the WNBA. And that's what they've been doing since the inception of the WNBA. So it gives them an opportunity to play at home, stay at home, and play. And then they come overseas to various European and Asian countries, and they're allowed and able to play there as well.
A lot of time, they are going to mostly Europe. For financial reason, because in Europe women are well paid, and I think it's still better paid than in the US and in WNBA. So what do you think about this situation?
It's hard. It's really hard because you look at the WNBA and we have some amazing women playing in the league, and you want to wonder, why are they not compensated? I mean, I'm not saying they have to be compensated in the same way that the NBA players are, because if you know your history, you know that once upon a time they weren't paid that well either. However, with the marketing dollars that are out there, sponsorship money, marketing dollars, whatever it is, investment in the league, I think we can do better. I know we can do better. I mean, we could talk about the WNBA, we can talk about women's soccer, we can do better. And if we want to look at wins versus losses and the number of people in the stands and things of that nature, we can still do better. And we're not in the United States. So that's why some of them are forced to go and play overseas, come abroad and play in the European market. And I know a lot of them would love to be able to stay home and play during what we call the regular basketball season. And I think the problem is going to be whether people will come out and support them and see them play at the same time that the NBA is playing. So I think that's part of the problem. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're playing in the summertime. We just need more marketing and more support in the various communities to support women's sport, period. But in this case, the WNBA.
And there's also another problem for WNBA franchise is when their players are going to play in Europe, for example, they have a risk of injuries, and so that could be an issue
Of course,
for the franchise. And but
it's
they're not doing anything about it, so they are not compensating the women to make
to
they
not
want to
play.
stay. Yeah, so that's an
I
issue.
mean, it's the same thing. If you ask the NBA players not to go and play in the Olympics, I mean, that's obviously a shorter period of time, but an injury is an injury, whether you get it playing in the Olympics or if they were in the same situation as the women playing in the WNBA and the men had to go to another country to play. Of course, you want your key players, your well-known players. You don't want anybody to have an injury, but you want to make sure that the players that the fans are coming to see are healthy, and pay them so that they can stay home. Pay them, allow them to work within the league, promote the league as a lot of them do, and they can stay home and do other things in various communities to keep them at home. And I have to just mention that for one of the huge differences in WNBA versus NBA is the men can leave college after 1 year and go and play in the NBA. The women have to have a degree. So they can't leave after that 1 year or 2 years. They can't do what we call one and done thing. They have a degree, which I personally think is great, because that way they have a degree, they have something to fall back on.
Right.
If God forbid you get injured in the NBA your first season out as a rookie, and you went to college for 1 year, what do you have to fall back on? You don't have anything.
Right.
So you don't have an education to fall back on. I mean, not that you can't go back to school, but I think it'd be more difficult.
We know that it's an issue in NBA. Let's talk about NBA and about Becky Emmons. I'm sure you know who she is.
Yes.
She's the first assistant coach in the NBA, and she may become the first head coach. What do you think about that?
I love it. It's a long
step.
time coming. I don't know what they've waited for. It's wonderful to see Becky come in and do what so many women before her have really paved the way for her to get to where she is. There's so many women coaches out there that could be coaching men's team. What's the difference? It doesn't matter. You know the game just as good as no one's questioning any man that coaches a women's team. Why do you have to question and have concerns about a woman coaching men? Granted, the game is a little bit different, but the game is the game. And if a woman is qualified and knows the game and understands the game and can engage male players to come on board with what she knows and get an education about the game, the way the game is played, why not? I don't understand what the problem is. I don't see the intimidation factor. I don't understand it at all.
Totally agree.
And yet, it's still a big issue because there are a very little number of women in the NBA. And so, Beckman, I think, will be a head coach maybe next season if Greg Popovich decides to retire.
We'll see.
I think,
we'll see. And I
hope
have my fingers crossed, and it'll be an amazing day. And she's going to open the door for so many women, young women, and the little girls to come. She has what it takes. She has the knowledge to do the job, just as so many other women. So, I wish her well.
And
so I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
How many women coaches are there in Europe coaching men's teams?
I would say
Mm.
none. I think there are no women coaching men's team in basketball in Europe.
In first division.
in first
Yeah,
Yeah,
division.
first
yeah.
division.
Let's say just first division,
Yeah.
and so
So
that's a real issue.
right. So why is it in your culture?
Well, I think it's pretty much the same than in the US. I think it's an international problem.
It's a global problem.
Yeah.
It's definitely a global problem, and even though there are sometimes example like Becky Hammond, and we think it's going to resolve, but unfortunately the problem is still there, and I don't think it's going to move anytime soon. Even though there's great examples, a lot of great women in the sport industry, not only in basketball, but I think men are not ready, and that's a huge issue to be coached or well to be led by a woman, and that's a major issue that we need to face.
That's unfortunate.
That's more than unfortunate. That's very sad for
I agree.
just mankind.
I agree. It is really sad.
Let's say, Monique, if there is certainly some women who are going to see this interview, if a woman wants to become a professional athlete or become a sports woman, business, I mean, what would you say to her?
Go for it and work hard. There's so many things that we can do, and don't let anyone stop you or tell you that you can't do it. Just do it. Just do whatever it is you want to do, because I mean, you guys know it's a man's world, but there's so many women that are kicking down doors and breaking barriers. Go for it. Just do it and work hard, if not harder. We all have to work harder than men in most cases to get what we want, especially in the sports industry. If you know what you're doing, go for it. Just go in there and do whatever it is you want to do, and do it better.
And that's why we're very happy to have you today to say that.
Thank you.
And obviously there's also a salary issue between men and women. We can just take the example of NBA and WNBA. So in NBA, the minimum salary is $500,000 a year, and it goes to 40 million a year for Steph Curry, which is the player that have the best income in the NBA. And on the other end, in the WNBA, the higher salary is only $120,000 a year. So that's a huge issue.
A
And
huge gap.
how can you explain that the gap is that huge?
Oh, I can't explain it. But what I will say is, take into consideration, you chose Steph Curry. Come on, he's a premier player. So he's one of the few who make the kind of money that he makes. However, you take into consideration the time period that the women are playing. So it will never balance out with the several months that the women play, and then the long season of NBA basketball. It'll never balance out in terms of time. I think we have to figure out a way for the women to make more money doing other things. And what I mean by that, it could be marketing. It could be doing things in the community. And they do those things. There's just more that could be done. And especially if you want to keep your premier players home, or keep most of your players home and not have them go overseas and have injury, give them more to do in the United States. Give them a salary. Maybe you see all these women who are commentators and sports analysis. And it's wonderful to see that as well. Coaches, it's wonderful to see that. And then they can come and stay at home and play in the WNBA. I don't know if you know this, but when the WNBA initially started, there were women who wanted to play so badly, they used their vacation time to come to stay home and play WNBA ball. And it was just awesome. I mean, I'm talking lawyers, accountants, doctors. They wanted this so badly, and they started off the WNBA, the entire league. And because they had degrees, they had careers, and they were able to do that. But like I said, they gave up their vacation time in order to help mold what we currently have that exists now as the WNBA.
All right. Well, thank you for answering all our questions. And before we end this interview, do you have anything you want to add?
Do I have anything that what?
Do you want to say anything more? Just maybe a question or a statement you want to add?
No, just I think in 2020, we're gonna see some new things happening in the world of sport for women, for student athletes here in the United States. That can be another discussion. There's so many new rule changes for agents as well that are coming down the pipe. And sports it's not going anywhere. So we need to change a few things, tweak a few things to make it better for everybody. I mean, I loved playing abroad, and it showed me another part of the world that I would never have seen had I not been a basketball player. So there's so many opportunities and things that young people can aspire to in the world of sport. And I say go for it. There's so many doors that you can open for yourselves in the world of sport. Just pick that thing and make it happen.
That's a great hand.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. It was a real pleasure having you and listen to you. We already know it because you were our teacher for one day in Chicago. But thank you again for all.
My pleasure.
For all that.
Yes, my pleasure. Anytime, fellas.
And this is the end for Monique Maye's interview. We hope that you enjoy it a lot. And then see you next week for a new guest. But a secret.
Just
stay a secret for the moment.
come back next week and you'll see who it is.
Bye bye.